Every company in the world right now is saying that they're using AI. But what does that actually mean? Because that could be an engineer who's replaced their entire coding workflow with AI. Or it could just be a CEO who downloaded ChatGPT and then wrote a LinkedIn post about how AI is changing their company. So today I want to cut through all of that. I activated my own personal deep research mode and went deep into a bunch of different sources. Things like the Hampton Founders Report, McKinsey State of AI analyses, Stack Overflow's developer survey, and a bunch of X posts, plus tons of real company examples. And I'm going to give you the actual breakdown, split into the 5 categories where companies are actually using AI, along with specific use cases for each of those buckets. For each of those buckets, we'll then also break down what sort of companies this works for, what it is good at, what it's not good at. So where is the hype versus reality gap? Basically, I want to give you a real world benchmark of how useful is this right now. Because you can say whatever you want in the press release, but are actual companies using this? What do the results look like? So first, let's talk about some numbers, and I want to bring up some data here. So McKinsey surveyed thousands of executives, and 88% said that their companies are using AI. 72% said that they're using generative AI specifically, so think that's something like ChatGPT or an LLM, as compared to something like machine learning, which you could have been doing 5 or 10 years ago. Hampton, which is a private community of founders, it's run by Sam Parr, who does My First Million, they found that 90% of founders are using AI in their businesses. But it gets really interesting because from that same McKinsey data, they found that all these companies were using AI, but only 5.5% said that it was actually moving the needle on the bottom line, like it was actually making them money. So almost everyone is using it, but very few people are making money. And that's the gap in the market. But if you understand how companies are using AI, then we can understand how to close that gap. So with that, let's talk about the 5 buckets. And I call this the BADIC Framework, with each letter standing for one of the buckets. The first bucket is build, aka coding. So this is using AI to code, to debug, to ship new product improvements, things like that. And this is where companies are using it the most. It's also where the ROI is the least debated. Like, this definitely works. Boris Cherny is the head of Claude Code at Anthropic, and he has said that at this point, basically 100% of the code he writes is AI generated. And he said his productivity has gone through the roof. He's shipping pull requests, or just updates basically, very consistently. An OpenAI researcher said the same thing, said 100% I don't write code anymore. And then across the industry, GitHub found that throughout early 2026, 51% of all code published to GitHub was AI generated. So I think you guys get the idea, people are using this. But how good is it? Well, basically they found that it's very good at writing code from scratch, doing boilerplate scaffolding of a bigger project. It can also fix some isolated bugs and is good at writing documentation. But where it starts to fall apart is deeper integrations into existing code bases. Because the thing is, all the human written code, oftentimes it's kind of messy, like companies try to improve this obviously, but if you've programmed a lot, you know how quickly things can get messy. So there's a lot of context and stuff that AI maybe doesn't understand. There's also a study that showed that among experienced developers, sometimes coding with AI made it take longer because they would spend more time going through the AI generated code to find bugs. The code was written and it worked at least upon first glance, but when you get really deep into it, there might be other bugs or vulnerabilities that people didn't initially foresee. But who is winning here? It's basically SaaS startups and any company with a dev team, as well as solo founders who couldn't code before, but now can make simple or medium-level complex tools. The losers are companies with no dev function at all. So for example, if you're a lawn care company, you don't really have anywhere to apply this because you just don't do that much stuff with code. I guess maybe that's not necessarily a loss, but it's just you aren't taking advantage of any of the benefits of AI here. Then moving on, bucket 2 is automate. So using AI to replace repetitive workflows. This could be stuff like invoicing, lead qualification, customer follow-ups, scheduling, document processing, things like that. In the past, tons of companies worked to automate repetitive tasks. Like, that's kind of what companies do. The thing is, you were pretty limited in how much you could automate a messy task where the inputs were unknown or there was going to be new information come in. But now these LLMs are excellent at this, and so this stuff is getting really good. So some real examples here to talk about. MasterCard used AI to improve their fraud detection by an average of 20%. The US Treasury also used AI in their fraud detection systems, went from recovering $652 million to $4 billion in a single year. That's pretty crazy. On the smaller end, a lot of home service businesses are now using this to do lead qualification. Because say someone submits their info on your website, you have to go through and see if that's actually a good lead or not. AI can do that very easily and can even send them some sort of follow-up message if you want. So what is it good at? It is good at high volume repetitive tasks with clear instructions, where you are doing the same thing over and over again. So again, appointment booking, lead qualification, invoice processing, document summarizing, things like that. Mainly where it falls short is when companies don't fully integrate it into everything. They see some cool demo on LinkedIn and say, oh, we got to apply this, and they do it, and it's great, but it's just one thing, and then still all the other processes aren't integrated with that. So in some cases, it ends up creating more work. Now people feel like they have to do stuff twice or duplicate information. It works best when you build a process with AI in mind first. So who is winning here? Well, financial service firms, anything legal related where you have a lot of contracts that are going in and out, heavily administrative businesses like healthcare, you have a lot of documentation and processing going in, and then a lot of small home service businesses, where again, the customer management is a lot of manual processes that could pretty easily be automated. So for example, that lawn care company isn't using AI to code, but they are using it to answer the phone or to respond to customers or to send out billing info. So that's bucket 2. Bucket 3 is decide, or basically using AI as your analyst, using it as a thought partner to help make excellent decisions. You're feeding it a bunch of info about your company, maybe financial documents, maybe internal documents about processes, SOPs, things like that. And then it is using that to help you come up with a strategy and make key decisions. The other one that is also in this bucket is more of financial analysis. So for example, a lot of investment companies are now using this to do analysis into a company they're thinking about buying. Could be like private equity, VC, or stocks. Some examples here. So Morgan Stanley created an internal tool that they gave to their wealth advisors, trained on all of their documents about how to give advice to people. It had all the key information. They say 98% of their advisors now use this. So instead of getting human biases, you are getting a super smart, intelligent AI helping you to make decisions. Goldman Sachs went even a bit further and built an agent tool that has a bunch of different agents for all the key tasks you might need. So it is one for data analysis, one for financials, one for content generation, one for code. So it's kind of becoming this internal AI operating system. To give a lending example, there's a company called Zest AI that increased their loan approval rates from 18 to 32% while cutting bad debt by more than 50%. So they're giving more people loans, but also reducing the amount of bad debt that they have. It's like a win-win. Usually you don't get both, it's a trade-off. So that's pretty cool. So what is it good at? Well, it's good at synthesizing large amounts of documents, pulling out key patterns from all the data within that, and then giving you key strategic insights from it. But where it starts to fall apart is again when the data is very messy or siloed. Like it only has access to certain things from within a company and is missing key context that actually help it to make a different decision. Now, as you're hearing that, you might be thinking that kind of sounds like most companies, which is pretty true. And that's actually one of the biggest things we're seeing is that companies need to do more work to clean their data, put it all together so that AI can cleanly analyze it. Not even just with this bucket, but in general. One more part where it can fall apart is hallucinating when doing investment research. I've seen a number of people on X talk about that, but there are ways to reduce that, which have to do heavily with prompting, like what you tell it to do and the specific instructions you give. So if you are using it for that, you do need to be a little bit more careful. So who's winning here? It's mainly finance, data, and investment companies with clean data stacks. Things are sorted, organized, they have what they need. Who's losing is people who try to apply this but don't have their data in a clean way, don't really know what they're doing, so the insights aren't actually good. It's kind of like if you're trying to make a recipe, but you're only able to see 40% of the recipe instructions. It's like, okay, I kind of get the idea, but I'm just missing the other stuff that I need. All right, then moving on, bucket 4 is interface. Another way you can think about this is chatbots. That's not everything here, but that's the best way to think about it. And the thing here is chatbots basically used to be one of the worst features on a site. Like, you know when you would go to a website, say in 2019, and there'd be the little chat pop up on the side, and there'd be some like logic tool that tries to help figure out what you need help with. It is just horrible. Like, you want to talk to a real person. But LLMs are great at this sort of thing. And so we're seeing a ton of companies use this, and customers actually like it. The best example here is Klarna. So they deployed an AI customer service agent. It handled 2.3 million customer requests in just its first month. Wait times dropped by a ton, and overall customer satisfaction was still quite good. This isn't from the Klarna data, but in another study, 80% of customers reported positive interactions with an AI chatbot on a company's website. So what is it good at here? Well, it's really good at high volume and repetitive customer interactions. So when there's questions that customers keep on asking over and over again, it's excellent at those. You update an internal wiki, it has everything it needs perfect. Where it struggles though are niche one-off questions that it maybe hasn't seen before or the company perhaps hasn't even dealt with before, as well as anything requiring a lot of emotional intelligence to understand what's needed. The chatbots tend to be very agreeable. So if you ask something, it's just like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. As well as handling things on the back end. So say if a customer wants to return something, they talk to the AI chatbot, you would need to have it hooked up with some sort of agent that handles looking up that customer's information, determining whether or not the return is valid, and then going and doing that. Most companies are not at that stage yet, but it is coming. So who is winning here? It is mainly fintech companies and e-commerce companies, as well as SaaS companies that deal a lot with customers. Honestly, this stuff is pretty good. And it's very easy to set up now because there are so many SaaS companies that just offer this. Like Intercom would be the main one, Front would be another. Both of those are really solid. Okay, and then the last bucket is Create. This is using generative AI to create usually marketing materials. So this could be images, it could be text for ads for a website, things like that. Then you've got to throw in video too, as that's grown a lot in recent years, and it can handle posting all of this stuff. This is probably the most noisy space in AI right now, and it is the one where it is the most overhyped. I've used and tested a bunch of these different tools. We used some of them at my last startup that I was working at, so I have a good sense of kind of what's working, what's not. But let's talk about some real examples where it really did work. First of all, Bayer ran an AI-assisted marketing campaign and saw clicks jump 85% year over year, while they were paying 33% less. Then there's an agency that ran a campaign for the company Hatch. They created ads with AI that got 80% more clicks, 46% more engaged visitors, and cost 31% less per purchase. Duolingo is another company that is using a lot of these AI tools for marketing, and they've said that the productivity per person in terms of amount of content that they can ship has gone up by 4 or 5 times. So what is it actually good at? For sure, the biggest one is written copy. So words and text on a website, on an email newsletter, on an ad, all of that is pretty good. Now, usually you have to go through a bunch of different variations. It won't get it right on the first try, but it will eventually get something solid. Another thing is that because it can generate so quickly, you can use it to create way more variations and test all of those. So testing has gotten much better. If you're running 50 ad variants versus 5 before, you are going to see better returns. Another thing it's really good at is repurposing existing content. So say you create a YouTube video like this, you could pipe it into one of these tools and it turns it into 10 other posts across other platforms. Now those don't always work. Like how well that works depends a little bit on what sort of format you're going for. For example, for video, you could use something like Opus Clip, which turns it into shorts, and they can be good, but it's kind of hit or miss. It's kind of a volume approach. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. Text-based, it's usually a bit better. In the middle is images. Images continuously get better and better. ChatGPT's new Image Gen 2.0 just came out maybe a week ago. Made a video on that and it's really impressive. If you know what you're doing, you can now cross the uncanny valley and get something really good that most people can't tell is AI. But it's still not perfect. And if you get it wrong, there are big prices to pay, because a lot of people don't like AI. Then let's talk about where it falls apart. First of all, brand consistency within images is pretty bad. Like even if you give it all of your colors or typography, it often will stray away from that over time. Again, typography is hard to get consistently good or consistently the same, at least in terms of fonts. Now the text gen is pretty good to put on images, but the fonts are still a little wonky. Video is still mostly in the uncanny valley, but that is starting to change. And I think the bigger picture is that a lot of people either don't care or can't tell what's AI generated. And so there are companies running AI generated ads that are crushing it. You might have seen the one with the monk advertising like Tai Chi or something. Like that is crushing, that's printing cash. My personal hunch is I think it does lean a lot more towards older people who aren't as adept at recognizing AI. Like that's kind of Facebook ad strategy in general. There's a lot of old people who just buy tons of stuff on there. Please take that with a grain of salt. Obviously that's just my opinion, but I do think that's part of it. If you're going for a younger audience though, oftentimes the AI look of videos is still very noticeable. And again, people don't like it. So who is winning here? It is mainly performance-driven e-commerce brands who are doing a bunch of testing. They really know how to run a bunch of tests at scale. scale and see what works best and double down on that. There are also marketing agencies that are starting to restructure a bunch of their work around AI, image gen, even video gen. And especially as it gets better in the next few years, they're going to be in the perfect position to print cash. And then who's losing? It is anyone who is using this but without a lot of checks and balances in place. If you just ask ChatGPT to write you a blog post and then post it, it's gonna look like AI. It writes in a specific style that most people can now tell, and people aren't big fans of that. Same with image, same with video content. You have to be looking at it, verifying that it actually looks good, lives up to your brand reputation before it goes out. So those are the 5 buckets within the BADIC framework. Build has got the lowest hype and the highest real ROI. Automate is very real value, but it is fragmented. You have to do it right. Decide sounds really incredible in the boardroom. Whether or not it works though depends on how good your data is and how good you are at prompting and using it. Interface works very solid now. That's probably the easiest fix to implement pretty quickly. And then create is the most talked about, but it's also the most uneven. The best people are executing really well with this, but the worst people are, I think, killing their brand reputation with it. But a huge factor at play here is how companies are applying it. The best companies are picking 1 or 2 of these buckets. Usually that's almost decided for you based on the type of company that you have. Like again, certain companies don't have any use for Claude Code because they don't do that much with code. So they pick the 1 or 2 that make the most sense for their business and then go all in on those. Fortunately, it's not one of those things you can just throw in instantly and it works. It does take focus. Also, if you are a company or a solopreneur, I put together a free AI audit that you can use to apply this framework to your stuff, your workflows, and see where you should be applying AI if you want to do that. It's totally free, but it is email gated. It's basically a starting point for you to apply AI and start getting real results. And I'll link to that down below. But the key thing to end on is that all of these buckets, all of these tools that we talked about are getting better. So in say 2 to 4 years, they're gonna be really, really good. And if you start using them now, you're in the perfect opportunity to be a leader when that time comes. Like it's already useful now for sure. And I don't wanna understate that, but it's gonna get much better in the future. So it makes sense to work on improving it now. I'll see you next time.